There are prayers that whisper, and there are prayers that wrestle. This story begins with the kind that refuses to loosen its grip. It began not in a church, but at a kitchen table worn thin by years of family meals and quiet tears. The house was still, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of a clock that seemed louder at night. On the table lay a rosary, its beads dulled by constant use, its crucifix smoothed by fingers that had clutched it through hope and heartbreak alike. This was the altar of a mother who would not give up. Her son had not always been lost. Once he had laughed easily. Once he had served Mass. Once he had knelt beside her as she prayed the rosary, awkward fingers fumbling the beads, eyes wandering but heart still within reach. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, the road bent sharply. Friends changed. Nights grew longer. Words between mother and son became strained, then scarce, then sharp. Eventually, he stopped coming home. First it was missed dinners, then missed holidays, then weeks without a call. Rumors arrived before he did. Drugs, anger, trouble with the law, a girlfriend who dragged him deeper into darkness. Each report felt like a stone laid gently, relentlessly on the mother's chest. Doctors offered advice. Friends offered sympathy. Some even suggested she let go. Give him space, they said. He has to find his own way, they insisted. You've done all you can, they concluded. But heaven had planted something stubborn in her soul. Each night after the house grew quiet, she reached for the rosary, not as a ritual, but as a lifeline. The beads slipped through her fingers like seconds through an hourglass, each Hail Mary a small defiance against despair. She did not pray eloquently. She prayed honestly. "Mother," she whispered, eyes burning, voice trembling, "I don't know where he is tonight. I don't know what he's doing, but you do. Go where I cannot go. Speak where my voice no longer reaches. Hold him when he won't let me." Some nights the rosary felt heavy, as though each bead carried the weight of unanswered questions. Other nights it burned with quiet fire. Always it kept her standing when everything else urged surrender. There is a lie that often circulates in suffering hearts, that unanswered prayers mean unheard prayers. This mother learned the truth slowly, painfully, faithfully. Heaven is not silent. Heaven is patient. Weeks became months. Months became years. Her son drifted further into shadows. Arrests followed. Rehabs failed. Promises were broken. There were nights when the mother collapsed onto her bed, clutching the rosary to her chest, begging God not just for conversion, but for survival. "Let him live," she prayed. "If nothing else, let him live." And yet, something unseen was happening. Grace rarely announces itself with thunder. More often, it moves quietly, like roots beneath hard soil. Every rosary was a thread. Every decade, a net cast into dark waters. Every sorrowful mystery mirrored her own heart, pierced, waiting, refusing to despair. She began to pray not only for her son, but with him in spirit. As she meditated on the mysteries, she placed him there. At the agony in the garden, she imagined him crushed beneath temptations too heavy to carry alone. At the scourging, she placed every wound addiction had carved into his soul. At the carrying of the cross, she begged Mary to walk beside him when no one else would. At the crucifixion, she surrendered him entirely, whispering, "Into your hands." And Mary listened. One night, years into this quiet war of prayer, the phone rang. It was past midnight. Mothers know this sound. It carries fear before words ever form. Her son was calling from a place she never expected him to reach on his own. The bottom. Broken, exhausted, afraid. He did not ask for money. He did not make excuses. He asked one thing only. "Mom," he said, voice hollow, "can I come home?" She said yes before he finished the sentence. When he arrived, days later, thinner and older than she remembered, she noticed something strange. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, eyes scanning the house as if seeing it for the first time. On the kitchen table, untouched, lay the rosary. He stared at it for a long moment. "I don't know why," he said quietly, "but when things were really bad, I kept thinking about this."
He reached for the beads. "I don't even know how," he admitted, "but sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd just say the Hail Mary over and over. It felt like someone was keeping me alive." The mother said nothing. She did not need to. This was only the beginning. Conversion is rarely instant. Healing is often slow. Relapses would come, struggles would remain, but something irreversible had shifted. The rosary had built a bridge where words had failed. And this story is not unique. Across the world, in homes like yours, mothers and fathers kneel beside beds long after their children have walked away. They grip the rosary when hope feels foolish. They whisper prayers that feel small against towering problems. Yet heaven counts every bead. The rosary does not force, it surrounds. It does not shout, it persists. It teaches a mother's heart how to love without control, to fight without violence, to hope without conditions. If you are praying for a child tonight, know this: your prayers are not delayed, they are being woven. Mary knows how to find the lost. She has been doing it since Nazareth, and she never gives up. There is a point in suffering when prayer changes its posture. At first, the mother prayed with urgency. She asked God to act quickly, decisively, visibly. She begged for phone calls, second chances, sudden clarity. But as time passed and nothing seemed to move, her prayer deepened. It slowed, it steadied, it became a vigil. This was no longer prayer as request. This was prayer as watchfulness. Each evening she lit a small candle beside the rosary. The flame flickered, fragile yet determined, mirroring her own heart. She prayed not because she felt hopeful, but because stopping felt like surrender. And surrender, she knew, did not belong to her. That belonged to God. Some nights, words failed her. She simply held the beads and breathed. Other nights, anger spilled out. "Why won't you stop him?" she asked. "Why does this keep getting worse? Where are you when I need you most?" The rosary did not scold her questions. It held them. As she moved through the mysteries, she began to notice something subtle. The rosary was changing her. While her son remained far away, her own heart was being schooled in endurance. Mary was teaching her how to love without panic, how to trust without proof. She began to understand that this prayer was not a lever to pull heaven down on her timetable. It was a bridge that kept heaven close while she waited. One night, during the sorrowful mysteries, she paused at the agony in the garden. Jesus had begged for the cup to pass. He had asked for relief, and yet he stayed. That was when the realization came quietly, without drama. She was not failing because her son was still lost. She was sharing in a mystery older than time, love that remains when control is gone. From that night on, her prayer shifted. She stopped demanding outcomes and started offering trust. "Mary," she whispered, "if you could stand beneath the cross and not turn away, teach me to stand too." She began to pray the rosary as an act of presence. Every bead became a declaration: I am still here. I am still loving. I am still believing that God is working even when I cannot see it. And then something unexpected happened. She noticed moments of peace arriving without explanation. The anxiety that once crushed her chest loosened its grip. Sleep came easier. Tears still fell, but they no longer carried despair. They carried surrender. This did not mean she stopped caring. It meant she stopped carrying what was never hers to hold. In that surrender, Mary began to work where fear could not go.
because when a mother keeps vigil with the Rosary, she is never praying alone. Heaven watches with her. Angels stand guard over the child she cannot reach. Grace moves quietly, patiently, invisibly, but relentlessly. And somewhere far from that kitchen table, a restless young heart was beginning to feel a strange discomfort with the darkness it once embraced. The Rosary had not yet brought him home, but it had begun to turn him around.
Grace rarely announces itself with thunder. For the child caught in rebellion, addiction, or flight, change often begins as an irritation, a restlessness, a crack in the satisfaction that once felt complete. The young man did not suddenly wake up wanting God. He woke up uneasy. The world he had chosen was loud, but it had grown hollow. Nights blurred together. Faces changed, but the emptiness remained. He told himself he was free, yet a strange weight followed him everywhere, like a question he could not silence. And then, without warning, memories began to surface. His mother's voice praying softly at night, the sound of beads sliding through her fingers, the image of a candle burning long after the house had gone quiet. He tried to dismiss it. He laughed it off with friends, but the memories returned, uninvited and persistent. They arrived in moments when defenses were low, late at night, early in the morning, in the pause between one choice and the next. This is how the Rosary often works. It does not chase the lost child down the street. It waits for the heart to slow enough to hear. One night, he dreamed of home, not the house itself, but the feeling of safety he once took for granted. He woke unsettled, his chest tight, his mind restless. The world that once promised excitement now felt thin, like a story he had already read too many times. He did not know it then, but this was the first mercy. Grace had begun to disturb his comfort. Meanwhile, miles away, his mother continued her quiet vigil. She did not know what was happening inside her son. She only knew that something in her prayer had changed. The fear had softened. The desperation had given way to confidence, not in circumstances, but in God. She prayed the joyful mysteries with a strange ache, imagining Mary holding a child she did not yet understand would one day break her heart. She prayed the luminous mysteries, asking that light would reach her son, even if he refused to look directly at it. She prayed the sorrowful mysteries, offering her pain without explanation. And she prayed the glorious mysteries, daring to believe that resurrection was possible even now. Every rosary was an unseen thread. Every prayer tightened the pull. The child began to feel it as resistance. Something in him resisted going further into darkness. He found himself stopping before choices that once came easily. He felt watched, not with judgment, but with concern, loved even when he did not want to be. This is the quiet warfare of the Rosary. No shouting, no spectacle, just truth pressing gently against a hardened heart. One evening, he picked up his phone, meaning to call no one in particular. His thumb hovered over his mother's name. He didn't press it, not yet, but he noticed something new. The door he had thought he had closed was still unlocked. And somewhere, at the same hour, his mother was finishing a decade, unaware that heaven had just shifted the ground beneath her child's feet. Conversion rarely looks dramatic from the outside. It often happens in a pause, a hesitation, a moment when the soul, exhausted by running, stops just long enough to breathe. For this child, the turning point came quietly. It was an ordinary day, weighted with the same routines, the same distractions, but something inside him felt different. The noise no longer fit the way it once had. The choices he used to defend now left a bitter aftertaste. He tried to ignore it,
He stayed busy, he stayed loud, he stayed surrounded. Still, the pull returned. That night, alone at last, he reached into a drawer he had not opened in years. Buried beneath old papers and forgotten objects was a rosary. The cord was frayed, the beads were worn smooth, shaped by hands that had loved him fiercely, his mother's hands. He stared at it longer than he meant to. He did not pray, he did not know how anymore. He simply held it, feeling the weight of something he could not explain. And in that silence, a truth rose gently to the surface. He was not as alone as he had believed.
The rosary did not accuse him. It did not list his failures. It did not demand instant change. It waited, the way Mary waits, patient and unafraid of the mess. He wrapped the beads around his fingers without thinking. The motion felt familiar, like muscle memory from a life he thought was gone. One bead, then another. He did not know the prayers. He whispered what he could. God, if you're there. It was enough. Grace does not require perfect words. It requires permission. Across town, his mother knelt at the same hour, unaware that her prayers had reached their appointed moment. She was not asking for miracles anymore. She was thanking God in advance, trusting that the work was already underway. He did not change overnight, but something shifted. The next morning, he noticed how light entered the room. He felt remorse, not crushing, but clarifying. He felt a desire to repair what had been damaged, beginning with his own heart. Temptations did not disappear, but they lost authority. Old habits no longer felt inevitable. Old lies no longer sounded convincing. The rosary, once ignored, became an anchor. He began to carry it in his pocket. He touched it in moments of stress, in moments of anger, in moments when he felt the familiar pull toward escape. Each bead was a reminder, you are still being prayed for. You are still being pursued. You are still loved. For the mother, the change arrived as peace before proof. She sensed that the struggle had crossed an invisible threshold. She did not yet see the fruit, but she trusted the soil. This is how the rosary saves, not by force, not by fear, but by leading the heart home, one small yes at a time. Grace works quietly until one day it doesn't. For weeks, the mother noticed only small things, a softer tone in his voice, fewer late nights, a text message that ended with "I'm okay" instead of silence. Nothing dramatic, nothing she could point to and call a miracle, but she recognized the signs. She had been trained by years of prayer to notice beginnings. Then, one afternoon, the phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. She hesitated before answering, not out of fear, but reverence. Something in her spirit told her this call was different. "Mom," he said, and paused. She waited. "I'm tired of running." The words fell gently, like rain on dry ground. He spoke slowly, as if discovering the truth while saying it out loud. He told her he felt empty. He told her he missed who he used to be. He told her he didn't know how to come back, only that he wanted to. She did not interrupt. She did not lecture. She closed her eyes and thanked God silently, because this moment had been prayed into existence bead by bead. She told him she loved him. She told him she had never stopped. She told him the door was open, just as it always had been. That evening, when he came home, the air felt different. Not healed yet, but holy. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she had once wept alone, gripping her rosary in the dark.
Now it lay between them, simple and ordinary, yet heavy with history. He picked it up. "Is this the one you used to pray with?" he asked. She nodded. "I think it helped," he said, not fully understanding how true that was.
Over the following days, change took root. He sought forgiveness, first awkwardly, then sincerely. He distanced himself from people who had kept him bound. He asked questions about faith, about confession, about prayer. Not every day was easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, old voices whispering that it was too late. But the Rosary had already done its quiet work. It had reopened a door the enemy had tried to seal. For the mother, joy came with humility. She did not claim victory. She understood that this was not her achievement, but God's mercy responding to persistent love. She continued to pray, not out of desperation anymore, but gratitude. The miracle had become visible, but the deeper wonder was unseen. A heart restored, a future reclaimed, a child learning again how to hope. This is the fruit of a mother who would not give up, not because she was strong, but because she placed her weakness into Mary's hands and trusted her to carry it to Jesus. After the reunion, after the relief, after the first signs of change, a new season begins. This is the part few people talk about. The prayers did not stop when the child came home. They changed. The mother learned something through all those long nights with the rosary pressed to her chest. Love does not relax once the danger passes. It matures. It deepens. It stays watchful without becoming anxious. She kept praying, not to force outcomes, but to protect the fragile work God had begun. Because conversions are not lightning strikes, they're dawns. Some mornings her child woke up hopeful and strong. Other days the old heaviness returned. Temptations resurfaced. Shame whispered that the past defined him forever. When that happened, she did not panic. She returned to the same prayer that had carried her through the worst. Slow, faithful, bead by bead surrender. "Mary," she prayed, "keep him when I cannot. Guard him when I sleep. Speak to him when he won't listen to me." And Mary did. In small ways at first. A chance encounter with an old friend who had also turned his life around. A sudden discomfort with habits that once felt normal. A growing desire for silence instead of noise, for meaning instead of escape. One evening, her child asked if they could pray together. Not out of obligation, out of hunger. They sat side by side, hands awkwardly folded around the rosary. He stumbled through the prayers, unfamiliar yet drawn. She let him lead, even when he hesitated, even when his words broke. That night, something healed in both of them. She realized the miracle was no longer just his return. It was the restoration of their bond. A new relationship formed not by fear or control, but by shared surrender. The rosary had not only brought her child back, it had reshaped her heart as well. She had learned to trust without clinging, to love without grasping, to hope without demanding timelines. This is the quiet strength the rosary gives, the ability to stay faithful after the crisis passes, when the world expects you to move on, but grace asks you to remain attentive. Because God does not rush what he intends to last, and a miracle sustained by prayer becomes a life anchored in grace. The mother understood now. Her role was never to save her child. It was to love relentlessly, pray persistently, and step aside when God began his deeper work. And so she kept the rosary close, not as a weapon anymore, but as a lifeline of thanksgiving, trust, and enduring peace. There comes a moment when every mother, every parent, every praying heart must release the outcome. Not because love has failed, but because love has been entrusted. The Rosary teaches us this final lesson gently, the way Mary herself teaches, with open hands. The mother in this story did not receive a perfect ending. She received something holier, a child still learning, a future still unfolding, a life placed daily into God's care rather than her own control. And that was enough. Because the greatest miracle was never the dramatic return or the sudden change. It was the grace to hope without fear, to trust without conditions, and to love without limits. If you are listening today with a heavy heart, praying for a child who has wandered, a loved one caught in darkness, or a situation that feels beyond repair, know this: no rosary is ever prayed in vain. No tear falls unnoticed. No whispered Hail Mary disappears into silence. Mary walks the roads we cannot walk. She enters rooms we are locked out of. She speaks to hearts we cannot reach. And she does so quietly, patiently, relentlessly. So do not stop praying. Do not measure progress by what you see. Do not believe the lie that it is too late. Hold the rosary again tonight. Pray it slowly. Offer it not as a demand, but as an act of trust. And as we close this episode, receive this blessing. May the mother who never gave up on her son stand beside you in your waiting. May the rosary become your peace when fear rises, your strength when hope feels thin, and your light when the night seems long. May God, who hears every prayer prayed in love, complete the work He has already begun. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Until the next story, keep praying, because love that kneels never stops fighting.